Gareth Southgate has resigned as England manager after 8 years in charge and 4 tournaments. I just want to go on record and say thank you very much, Gareth. I mean, it didn't quite work out. We didn't quite go all the way and win one. But I think from where you started to where you got the team and the country, I just want to say a big, big thank you. But this isn't the video about me talking about Gareth, because if you want to get my thoughts on what I think about him, what he should have done, well, they're all kind of in the last 8 minutes of the video I posted on Monday, which is me reacting to the Euro 2024 final in which we lost to Spain. This video is about looking ahead, looking forward, and who's going to be the next man in charge of England. I've picked out 15 names from the bookies of who I think are realistic candidates, and some I just genuinely want to talk about. I'm going to go through the pros and cons of every single one, and right at the end I'm going to give you my pick of who I think should be the next England manager. And the first manager that we're going to be talking about is someone who I think is probably there just because he's available at the moment. But I think as soon as you have a Scotsman in charge of England, hell is definitely frozen over. And that Scotsman is David Moyes. I don't think he's got a chance of being England manager just because he's Scottish. But I will let you know, the fact that he's managed Everton, Manchester United, Sunderland, West Ham, Real Sociedad, he's got the amount of games you would like for an experienced manager to be taking over a national team. I just think that if he was English, he definitely would be in consideration. He probably would have been in consideration before. But I think him being Scottish and also his style of play, I think the way it grained on the West Ham fans towards the end, I think going forward now, England really need to find someone who's going to be playing a bit more proactive attacking football. I think David Moyes is probably a bit too similar in terms of play style to a Gareth Southgate. I don't think he's got any chance. He's not a get away from me, but I think he's just the wrong fit. And talking about wrong fit, the next up we've got Steve Holland, who is actually Gareth Southgate's right-hand man, second man in charge. And I think, again, he's just the wrong fit because with this new manager, whoever they may be, it's about looking forward and going ahead and not worrying about what came before you. And I think Steve Holland is being part of Gareth Southgate's backroom staff. I think he's just a bit too close to Gareth. He's too synonymous with Gareth Southgate and this current England setup. And so if you want to bring in a new guy, change things up a little bit, then I think that he's probably not the man to do that for you. And also, it was quite public the fact that Ben White's falling out happened because he fell out with Steve Holland. And so I think if you've already fallen out with one player and you're not already the manager, then I don't think that's a great sign for you getting the job next. And for me, Steve Holland is someone who's definitely just not the right fit. And actually, I'm going to put him in getaway because let's look ahead. Let's not look back. From managers who had long odds to a manager now who's definitely one of the firm favourites. Up next is Eddie Howe. And I really like Eddie Howe, and I think he should definitely be in consideration for the England job because I think the job he did at Bournemouth, getting them to the divisions, was fantastic, and then keeping them in the Premier League. I think the job he's been doing in Newcastle as of late has also been fantastic. Yes, they didn't have a fantastic season last year, but still much better than where they're probably expected to be considering the amount of money that they've spent. And again, this year they should probably go on to try and compete and get themselves back in the Champions League places. Plays a very good attacking style of football with a very solid defence. He seems to be someone who's got it all. He's also young enough. He's also English. And, he's going to be a lot of people's firm favourites for the England job. And he's one of my favourites as well. I think he's got everything about him. I just wonder if he left Newcastle right now, is it the right time for him? Because there's a project going on in Newcastle in which they're really going to try and strive and achieve the Champions League places. One day they're going to try and hope they can compete and eventually win the Premier League title as well. I don't feel like it's Eddie Howe's time right now because I think he's got more to achieve at Newcastle. I think there's still a project that needs to be done, and one where if he were to leave now, would we look at him as England fans and think, oh, where do your loyalties lie? Because you've got something going on here. They're investing in you, and you decided to jump the project before it's over. And I think probably Eddie Howe needs to stay for a couple more years just to see how the project works out. Let it take its due course. But for me, if he wants to take the England job, then he's definitely going to be up there. And I think for me, he is going to be a serious contender. And then moving on from one English manager to another, up next is Frank Lampard. And I'll be honest, obviously his name is going to be in and around there, being a player who did fantastically well for England and who has been a manager as of late and has managed some pretty big clubs like Everton and Chelsea. However, I do think that the way his club manager career is going at the moment, it's on a little bit of a down, and I don't think he's deserving of the England job at the moment. I think he really needs to find a club, whether that be in the Premier League or whether he has to drop down divisions or go abroad, where he really needs to just spend a good few years here, because he wasn't there long at Derby, he wasn't there long at Chelsea, he wasn't there long at Everton. I would like to see him take a club and mold them into the way he wants them to play, because I really want to see what that is and what it can be, because without knowing that, I'm not sure I really want him to take charge of this England team with so much potential, with so much talent, with players who are world class and are borderline world class. I'm not sure he's the right man for the job. I actually think he's so far away from it that for me, I don't think it's too soon. I actually think for me, Frank Lampard, get away. Right, up next then is Lee Carsley, and this is another name that a lot of people really want to have the England job, because he won the under-21 championships with England only last year, and that winning that tournament really puts you in another level, because as we've seen with Gareth Southgate and some other international managers, once you're in the setup, especially in the youth, and then you work your way up, you know the way that the FA works, you know the way that the politics are going to be around England, and you're able to handle the pressure at some level. So why not take the step up from under 21 to the men's senior national team? And I think I can definitely see him getting the job, and definitely being considered at the very least. And I think he should be up there. But is he ready for the pressure of the men's national team? I'm not sure. I'll be completely honest. I think I wouldn't mind it if he were to get the job. I just don't think I'd love it, because the reason why I think it was okay for Gareth Southgate to get it when he did in 2016 was considering the circumstances around the sacking of Sam Allardyce and him coming in, and with the expectations of the players and the fans were at that time, was a lot lower than where the expectations are now. Any manager coming in is going to be earmarking that World Cup, and the fans are going to be saying, you might have to win that, or we are going to be one of the favourites. And if they don't do well, the scrutiny is going to be immense. And for me, I don't know Lee Carsley too well in what kind of person he is or how he does in his interviews, but it just seems like a job that is a lot bigger than it has been pre-Gareth Southgate, just because of where the expectations have been. And now with so many people loving England and so many eyeballs on England, I just think that it's probably a step too big for him at this moment in time. So for me, I think it's one where I can definitely see him having a bright future in management. I just think from now, it's just too soon for me. The next potential manager is Gary O'Neill, another Englishman, and someone who I really, really like. I think he's been dealt a very difficult hand in his management career. Obviously, he was second to Scott Parker at Bournemouth. He got sacked very early on into the season. He then had to take over. He kept them up and then got sacked, unfortunately, obviously because of Iraola at Bournemouth. It clearly seems like a right choice. But then he's gone to Wolves. Wolves have had some financial fair play issues, having to sell a lot of their best players. And he did really, really well with Wolves last season. And I've been incredibly impressed with him, because he's come across as someone who's very straightforward, doesn't complain, just gets his head down and does the work. And there's something about in the modern day when a lot of managers complain that you really just like a stand-up guy. And he's very, very much like Gareth Southgate in that way. I just think for me, I think it's a little bit too soon for me. I think 2 full seasons in the Premier League, that's all right, but I want a little bit more. I want a bit more of an X factor, and I think, if anything, that I just think it's too soon, and I think he'll probably get eaten up. And if he were to be interviewed, I wouldn't be surprised if he were to take that interview, but I don't think he should take it personally, just because I think he should spend some more time at club level, learning his trade, becoming a quality manager, because again, he is still so young. So for me, I think this is another one where it's just too soon. Now, next up on my list, I've got Jose Mourinho. And what Mourinho and England would definitely be is blockbuster. There would not be a dull moment whatsoever, and everyone would be hanging on every single word and every single moment on the pitch. But I do think that it probably would be a bit of a mistake, just because we know what Mourinho is like. He is very passionate, and sometimes that passion can become hot-headedness. And I think it's all very fun watching from the outside when he doesn't manage your own club. But if he was in charge of England, I just don't see a world where it ends up well. And especially after Gareth Southgate has, one of the positives of Southgate is he's got these players working together. He's got a great harmony and togetherness and spirit in this England squad. So I think Mourinho coming in wanting his players to be, he would just ruin it all, I think. And I think it'll be fun. Like I said, it will definitely be blockbuster, but I just can't see it happening. I don't think it's a getaway because I quite like the thought of Mourinho. I think for international teams, he would actually be great because of the fact that it is a knockout competition and something that he really excels in, as we've seen with competitions. But I just think it is just the wrong fit. I mean, I would love Mourinho with England, but, come on, let's be realistic. We've got an interesting one up next. It is Kieran McKenna, Ipswich Town's manager, and one where he's already been linked to a couple of top jobs this summer alone with the likes of Chelsea and Manchester United. But this is before a ball's even been kicked in the Premier League. And I think he's a very young manager with a very bright future. The immediate reaction I have is that it's too soon. But I do think that there is some stock in McKenna that it's worth investing in and watching just for now. Because as we've seen with the likes of Vincent Kompany, he got Burnley promoted and he got them relegated as well after one season. But you saw that from Burnley, he's ended up getting the Bayern Munich job. So I think Kieran McKenna is probably well placed to just stay at Ipswich, do as good a job as he probably can. They're investing a bit of money into the squad at the moment over the summer, so it looks like they're going to give themselves a fighting chance of surviving relegation. And even if they don't, he still is probably going to end up, in a positive light as long as he plays attractive football and doesn't annoy the fans and gets them on side. So I think it's one where it's definitely too soon for Kieran McKenna, but it's one to keep an eye on, I think. Right, another manager at a bit of a long shot, but I thought his name was worth discussing, and that is Roberto Mancini. Someone who has managed England, been successful in England as we saw with Manchester City, done it in multiple countries in Italy as well, and also at the international stage with Italy, and of course at the expense of England at the home Euros in 2021. Is he someone that I can see taking the England job? No. He's only recently quit the Italy national team job to join the Saudi Arabian team for a massive, massive pay rise. I can't see England offering him too much that he's willing to drop down so heavily and take the England job, because I think the Saudi Arabian one was offering him so much more. But I think it's one where it's worth discussing because there is, of all the names I mentioned so far, none of them have been managers at an international level who have been successful. There is something to be said about the fact that, there's the tried and tested. I mean, you don't necessarily have to go for them, but it's something at least worth considering them because they've been there and they've done it. And Mancini definitely fits that bill. But I think just for me, because of the fact that he was the manager for Italy when they beat England, it just feels a little bit too close to home, a little bit too personal. And for me, it just wouldn't feel right. It made me feel a bit like Capello vibes. Maybe I've been scarred by that era of him and Sven-Goran Eriksson, where it doesn't feel like he'd be able to find that bond with the England fans and England players as well as I think Gareth Southgate has been able to. And so for me, I think this is just, he's a quality manager, but he's just the wrong fit. The next potential manager is Steve Cooper, who is now going to be manager of Leicester City for the upcoming Premier League season. And it's one where he's been a Liverpool U team setup. He did a fantastic job with Nottingham Forest, not only getting them promoted, keeping them in the Premier League. And when he did get sacked at Forest, it did seem potentially a little bit harsh. He's been out of work since then, and he's now been appointed as Leicester City's manager. But again, it just feels like one where it's just a little bit too early for him. I think what we're really seeing from these English managers is they need to be managing in the top half of the Premier League table, really doing well, playing the attractive style of football. And I think on a few accounts there that I think Steve Cooper definitely misses out on. He's definitely the right age and he definitely has room to grow. So that's encouraging for him. But maybe not disappointment, maybe the one after or maybe the one after that. He's just a little bit too far away. And for me, I think it is just too soon. If England were to go for a foreign manager, then I think the next man definitely has to take some serious consideration, and that is Mauricio Pochettino. And you might go, really? Pochettino? But when you think about it, he's managed Southampton, Tottenham Hotspur, and Chelsea in the Premier League. Yes, he hasn't won a trophy with any of them. However, he did go to PSG, win the league title a couple of times. And I think it is someone who, he understands the English game. He plays a very good, attractive style of football, and he's used to working with young players, and with his now time at Chelsea, also older, more experienced players. And if you were to go for a foreign manager, then I think, there's not too many better at club level at the moment. I think he got very harshly sacked by Chelsea towards the end of the season, although it might have been a bit of a mutual agreement. Who really knows what's going on at Chelsea? But we can all agree that, he definitely deserved another season there. It is one where there might come to the hasn't won a trophy in England stigma, and people might not be too fond of him, and he might not be at the level of other foreign managers, as we may come on to later. But I just think that he's one who's worth considering, because you don't know who's going to be the right man until you appoint them and see what they do. But I think it is one where does Pochettino go from here? Yes, maybe he could wait, and if Vincent Kompany doesn't work out at Bayern Munich, he could go there. If maybe somewhere in Italy doesn't work out there, but I just really look at it and think to myself, England could be fantastic for him, and we could be a great opportunity for him as well. So I think to myself that Pochettino is one who's seriously worth considering. At least you bring him in for an interview and just see how it goes. And if not, it's all right. But I think you could give him a shot. And for me, I think he's got to be a serious contender. Next up, we have Graham Potter, who is definitely one of the firm favourites to get the England job next. He's definitely he's either one or two in the bookies' favourites. I think the fact that he's English, the fact that he's unemployed at the moment, and the fact that he plays very good, attractive football, which fits this England DNA that the FA want to be encouraging and pushing. I think he is definitely going to get it being interviewed, and he definitely might get the job. And for me, I think about Graham Potter and I think, okay, I don't hate it. I actually could get quite excited about it. He did a great job at Brighton, and it's almost one where after he left, Roberto Mancini took over, and the last season, a lot of people were saying a lot of the good that's already been at Brighton is because of Graham Potter and not necessarily because of De Zerbi, which I don't know if that's being a bit harsh on De Zerbi just because he had a bit of a tail off in the last season. But I think there are some merits on it, and if you want to play devil's advocate, you could definitely make the point that, it was Graham Potter's foundations which made Brighton excel under De Zerbi. So I think that definitely is a plus in his column. I think the negative in this column is the fact that, his time at Chelsea was an absolute stinker. I mean, he didn't survive, the season that he even joined, and he only joined halfway through, didn't survive till the end. And it is one where, the more experienced, bigger players kind of seemed to did get him out of the club, and they weren't too keen to him. They didn't respond to him, and that is a bit of a worry for me. So I think he's definitely got to be a serious contender just because he fits the profile and criteria of what you want for a traditional English manager. However, that Chelsea spell just is a little bit of a worry for me, and one where he's probably playing it smart. He's probably been turning down jobs in the hope that the England job will come up. England job has come up, and if he doesn't get it, I don't know what's going to be his next move, because for him, I think this is going to be perfect. Really put him into that next level of bracket of managers if he were to get it, and if he doesn't, then I don't know what he does next, but he's definitely going to be a serious contender. The next potential manager is Thomas Tuchel, and this is the name that I really like. Even at club level, I think he's still got so much to offer. However, I look at him and I just think, very similar to Pochettino, where are you going to manage next? Like Tuchel has already managed Borussia Dortmund, PSG, Chelsea, Bayern Munich. What is going to be his next move? Where does he go? And I'm not entirely sure, because Real Madrid is locked down at the moment, Barcelona is locked down at the moment. England doesn't really seem like a job's going to be coming up anytime soon, at least, well, all we can say for the next 3 to 6 months at least. Italy looks on lockdown, and I just think that, maybe international management is the way to go for a couple of these managers, and Tuchel could be one. And again, he's got a very good record in knockout competitions. He got Chelsea all the way to the Champions League final and won it, of course, and he also did get to the final a second time, but did miss out on winning it. And I just think that, similar to Pochettino, he's a very good, experienced manager who's played in multiple countries. He's managed in England. He knows the team. He knows the players. And I think this is one where, if it's up to me and you're considering a foreign manager, then I think Pochettino and Tuchel are potentially two at the very top of my list. We'll come on to the remaining names. But I think he's out of work. He's available. And I think at the moment, I think there's not too many other places Tuchel can go which are the level of caliber of club that he deserves. And I think if he were to become the manager, everyone would just respect the hell out of him. No one would question him. No one would. With Southgate, it has been a little bit like, are you good enough? yeah, you're nice enough, but we'll still talk about you badly behind your back. With Tuchel, I don't think as a fan base we could get away with that as a country, and I think that he would really put us in our place, and maybe that's something that we need. But again, I'm not entirely sure, but he definitely, if it's up to me, I'd interview him, and he definitely would be a serious contender. Which brings us on to our last two managers, and I'm going to do them together, and it is Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola. And this is a really tough one because I would love either of them to be manager of England. And I think to myself, if either of them were to become England manager, the whole country would be overjoyed, and there'll be party in the streets, and everyone would be ecstatic about the appointment because you would have a genuine world-class manager as England manager in their prime. But I just don't think the managers who are world-class and in their prime are going to take an international job. I think with Jurgen Klopp, obviously his time with Liverpool is now over, and he decides that he wanted to take a break. And I just think the timing is wrong. I think I'm looking at clubs for Jurgen Klopp, similar like I am for Pochettino and Tuchel, and I just think there isn't really an obvious club at club level that I think Klopp is going to go to. So I think it's better off that he does take some time off and wait for that. And I just don't think that he's going to take the England job right now, because I think he is a man of his word and he wants to take some time off, spend some time with his family. And I just think that the timing is off. It's just as simple as that. I think otherwise, potentially, I think he would be interested in staying in England. And I think everyone in England would have loved for him to be England manager, but I just think the timing's wrong. It's so wrong. So, in a weird way, I'm going to put Jurgen Klopp in too soon, not because of his managerial capabilities. He's definitely more than capable of being England manager. He's arguably overqualified, but I just think that the opportunity and the timing of the job coming up is too soon for Jurgen Klopp. So that's why I'm going to put him in too soon. And then Pep Guardiola as well. Obviously, I think similar vibes of that. Everyone will be overjoyed. Everyone will be like, oh my God. I mean, expectation will go through the roof. But rightly so, when you have arguably the greatest manager of all time, and definitely the greatest manager who's currently managing as England manager. And he would take us to the next level. I have no doubt that the demands of Guardiola has at club level will not drop down for international level. He might struggle with style of play, but I think the quality that the players have within them and the coaching that they're getting at club level would mean that he'll be able to implement a style of play that is capable of winning major tournaments. And I think England could be very successful with Guardiola. However, sorry to spoil the party, but I just think that he's not going to be taking the England job now. If you ask him, will you leave Man City right now to take the England job? I think the answer is no. I think he still has some unfinished business with Manchester City. He still maybe wants to get maybe another Champions League, win the league for the 5th time, who knows. But I just think the timing is off on him as well. I think if the job came up in a year, maybe 2 years' time, I think Guardiola and Klopp are both interesting. But I think I'm going to have to put Guardiola along with Klopp in the too soon category. Again, not because of his managerial capabilities. He is more than qualified, definitely overqualified, but the timing is wrong, and it is just too soon for him to be leaving Man City at this moment. So I'm going to put both Pep and Klopp in the too soon category. Right, we're nearly done then, but as you can see, I haven't put anyone in the top tier, which is perfect, because I don't actually think there is any manager out there who will be the perfect manager for England. And I don't think it's obvious now. It probably will be after they manage England, but I think for now it is going to be difficult. But who would I pick? As you can see, Graham Potter and Eddie Howe are the two English managers who I think are definitely have a serious chance of getting it. And then Pochettino and Thomas Tuchel are the two foreign managers who I think should have a serious chance, but I'm not sure they probably will. If it was up to me, then I'm going to be moving Eddie Howe up into perfect, and I'm going to be moving Thomas Tuchel up into perfect. As if I wanted an English manager, I would go for Eddie Howe, and if I wanted a foreign manager, I would go for Thomas Tuchel. Why Eddie Howe over Graham Potter? Well, just because I think I've spoken about it quite a bit in this video, but I think timing is so important. And I think with Eddie Howe, he is on an upward trajectory. And I think Graham Potter is just either plateauing or on a slide down after a job at Chelsea. Yes, he's available now, but I just think that the fact that Eddie Howe was able to take a Newcastle side into the Champions League, do okay in the Champions League. I mean, obviously they got knocked out in fourth, but they had that fantastic result against PSG. They were in the group of death, so you've got to give him that as well. I just think that Eddie Howe is probably showing more signs of promise than Graham Potter at the moment, but I think Graham Potter is probably more likely to get the England job than Eddie Howe. And why Thomas Tuchel over Mauricio Pochettino? Well, for me, I just think Thomas Tuchel is just a little bit more of a winner. I think this England side now is ready to win stuff. They just need a little bit more of an impetus, a little bit change in their mentality, and they need to be given the keys to go out there and express themselves. And I think Thomas Tuchel can do that. He is a winner. He has won things. He has won more than Mauricio Pochettino. And just for me, I think he's someone who would command respect a little bit more so than Pochettino, which is something you're definitely going to need, because you are going to get ridiculed and criticized from every single angle when you're going to be the England manager. But there you have it. Those are all the names and everyone who I've considered for the England job. Let me know what you guys think. Would you go for Eddie Howe? Would you go for Thomas Tuchel? Would you go for someone else? Does the manager have to be English? Do they not have to be English? Do you care? Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.